Welcome back. New York State Governor Kathy Hochul announced a nation-leading initiative to offer fully paid parental leave benefits to New York State employees. More than 10,000 unrepresented state employees will be eligible to receive 12 weeks of fully paid leave to use, and the majority of these employees are already eligible. Joining me to discuss what this means for working families in New York are co-founders of Bronx Rebirth and Progress Collective, Nicole, JeanBaptiste, and Evelyn Alvarez. I want to thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, this sounds like pretty amazing news. And I think it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this wasn't already a thing. Can you just tell me your thoughts when you heard the news that this would be happening?
Sure, yeah. I'll say that this feels very much in line with what we want to see in terms of reproductive justice for the communities that we serve, and that's largely parents, birthing folks, people of reproductive age. And the reason why is because this would really allow folks to birth their babies and heal in a much more reasonable time, as well as bond with their babies without having the stress of, is my light bill going to be affected by the fact that I'm not at work and I'm not receiving pay? So I think definitely there's an intersection here of reproductive justice and economic justice that's really, really refreshing.
And can I have your thoughts as well?
I agree with everything Nicole said. We're super excited about the opportunity for full families also to be able to bond when there is a new family member joining. So that's one of the benefits as well, just having the whole family be able to collaborate and get together.
Now, what did parental leave look like prior to this launch? And it doesn't even have to be, I guess, the actual business side, but what did this look like for a new parent who had a child and, maybe had to think about going back to work, or if they didn't go back to work?
I mean, it depends on the individual, right? So there are some people who may have had more robust leaves. But for example, someone like me, when I had my son many years ago, I had to go back to work in 7 weeks. And I lived in the Bronx and I worked in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. So having to leave a 7-week-old for 10, 11 hours at a time in order to make a living was really deeply impactful to my emotional, physical, mental well-being, our family structure. At the time, my son's dad worked nights, I worked days. So really, when you think about the opportunity to be able to have a longer leave where people can really ease their way into the village of parenting, I think that's just absolutely critical and beneficial.
Prior, you mentioned healing, and I think that's so important because, when we have these conversations where we are thinking about bills and, housing and just the idea of living, but healing is also, I think, a really important thing that sometimes get left out. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, totally. So we're living in a country where our maternal health outcomes are staggering in comparison to other places in the world. And we have a maternal mortality rate that is really not where it should be. And I think what's important to note is that most of these outcomes are happening in the postpartum period after people give birth. And so having a greater emphasis on what is it that we're doing for people to recover and allow for time so that these outcomes are not maintained is really, really critical. Healing, it transcends the physical, right? Having the ability to really process a birth experience that might have been amazing or might have been really challenging is very, very important to the overall outcome that someone experiences. And I think that I'm hoping that what we'll see is a trajectory where maternal mortality is concerned that it really declines due to this law and other factors related to it.
I'm glad that you brought up maternal mortality. Because, obviously that wasn't, necessarily, I guess, the focus in regards to this. It was for, paid parental leave. But I think it's important to bring it up because, I think that could definitely just affect somebody. So, it could affect somebody so much. And so, why is it important to think about that as well when we talk about paid parental leave?
I mean, at BxRx, we say all the time that all health is maternal health, right? And so to have to make decisions based on economics in a country as with so much access as ours is really unfortunate, and it impacts the people that are most marginalized, the people that are poorest, right? Our neighbors. A lot of our clients are impacted by, how can I make this work? How can I stay home, bond with my baby, physically heal, mentally heal, take the time that I need to identify if some of the issues that happen in the postpartum that Nicole mentioned are even showing up for me, right? And so really being able to create a space where we can let new families breathe from the literal and figurative sense is critical and important to our collective well-being.
Now, according to NY.gov, the United States is the only developed country in the world without a national paid parental leave policy. As doulas and, people in your field, why do you think, just the idea of birth continues to be a challenge in our country? Or maybe people don't, I guess, I don't want to say that they don't take it as seriously, but there has to be some challenge as to why, we still don't have this nationally in the US. Do you have any ideas why you think that might be?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is rooted in history, right? Historically, mothers, women, caregivers have not been prioritized. And so the legislation like this has been taken a back seat if it's even been considered. I think in this country, we place a much greater emphasis on what it means to accrue wealth without any regard for actual families and the well-being of the people who raise them, right? And we see a stark difference in places that are outside of the United States, where like it's okay, standard. After you have your baby, you're going to receive this type of physical therapy, right? And most of our clients have not even heard of like pelvic floor therapy, for example. Whereas in places like France, that's standard. In places like France, Germany, Canada, paid parental leave has been on the docket for however long, right? So we're looking at this as something that's revolutionary, whereas in other places, it's just been the norm for a really long time, and for good reason too. So I'm glad that we're taking this step.
Now, you talked about some of the things that I haven't even heard of. I think so many of us know people who had children, but we know, unfortunately, that, a lot of the people in our life aren't, going to these different types of therapy. They are going back to work. As doula, can you just talk about, your experience, helping people who have given birth or, are going through that process and, educating them on the things that they should have, accessible to them?
Yeah.
I mean, how much time do we have?
Like, where do we begin?
Right. There's so much to share as it pertains to that. But really recognizing that part of our role as doulas is to help families identify what will I need and to also secure them. So we are in the business of helping people identify resources, opportunities. And to Nicole's point of just saying that there are certain therapies that they can receive or have access to, and then helping them figure out, what does my insurance look like or doesn't, in order to be able to have access to that. So we're looking at pelvic floor therapies, we're looking at lactation support, we're looking at mental health supports, we're looking at an extended postpartum period, which is one of the things that we are currently piloting at BxRx, is really thinking about the historical 6 weeks after your baby being like just the tip of the iceberg. Like that's nothing in comparison to how much time people actually need, right? And there's a movement, I know Chanel Portia from Ancient Song says it all the time, like postpartum is forever, right? You're not the same after you have a child. And so really being able to give people ease into that space of like, who am I? I am a completely new person when someone joins my family and I become a caregiver. This is for the rest of my life, hopefully.
Now, how do you think, the passing of this is going to affect fathers or maybe another parent who, they didn't give birth themselves, but they are supporting somebody who gave birth? How is this going to affect them as well?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think that this has the potential to transform family units in a really amazing way. Just going back to history, one of the things that we've been conditioned to believe is that there is one primary caregiver, when in actuality, that doesn't have to be the case. Like this can and should be a shared responsibility raising up a child. And I think that, having this policy in place will allow for non-birthing parents to really step up and step into and own that co-caregiving role. And I think it'll have lasting effects on the children that we're bringing up into our world, into our communities, right? You know, having a model of what it means to truly work in partnership with the folks within your family. And in particular, seeing this done in most cases from male-bodied people, right? You know, like really questioning what we've been trained to believe is the role of masculine figures in our families and our communities.
Did you want to possibly add to that?
I completely agree. I mean, I think that what Nicole started with revolutionizing the family unit is really important. I also think a lot when, you know, based on your question about what that can look like for same-sex families who may not have to go through hoops to confirm, like I am a parent, right? So being able to easily get into the act of bonding as well, and really being able to support partners is what really is a beautiful thing for me, that families get that incubation period to be able to kind of learn each other as a family and redefine their family however they see fit through this process.
Okay, well, last question. What do you hope to see for the future of, you know, just, I guess, the world, or, you know, just the area of birthing and, you know, taking care of these people who just brought a child into the earth?
Oh, that's a big question, but we're ready. We're ready. Wow, we'd like to see we'd like to see easy access to folks like us for doulas prior to becoming pregnant, during your pregnancy, during birth, after birth, and in a way that is easily integrated into folks' worlds, right? So it's not that you have to earn a certain income or have had you know, certain level of education, or your family makeup needs to be a certain way. No, we want for everyone, regardless of which community you live in, to really access the benefits of this trained support, right, from a culturally responsive standpoint. And then there's also money too, right? I'd like for, we at BX Rebirth, we're partnered with the Bridge Project, which is a no strings attached. Every month you are a new parent for the first 3 years of your parenting journey. Folks are receiving $1,000. And we worked with them to distribute those funds during this first pilot phase in the Bronx to over, I want to say, 500 individuals. And we want to see more of that. Right. And I think that this is a direct extension of what we talked about today. Right.
Well, I would say definitely like doulas for all, equitable incomes, and also that this expands to that this project that, you know, Governor Hochul just mentioned is for New York State employees. But we really hope that over time that it expands to all employees, because we can also see how this process can really cripple small business, right? And so really being able to be intentional about implementing governmental support to people that have small business so that they don't have to be the ones to also not offer this option to their employees. Like any person that is working deserves to have a significant amount of time off when integrating a new person in their family.
All right. I want to thank you both so much for talking about this with us. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Kibin.
We'll be right back with more Open right after this.